Hello. There is a new miniature game on the horizon that has been designed by, crafted by, comes from the mind of one of the greatest artists in tabletop gaming history. Not only that, but it features rules that have been designed by a modern master of the form. And to play it, you only need a single miniature. John Blanche's On Garde is a dueling game that takes place in a puritanical world, created by John Blanche and written by his Mordheim collaborator, Tuomas Pirinen, with miniatures fashioned by some of the finest hand sculptors working today. This game is shaping up to be a triumph of visuals, lore, and gameplay, so I'm eager to understand as much as I can about it. I'm Jordan, this is Jordan Sorcery, and today I'm going over everything we know about John Blanche's On Garde. When I first heard about John Blanche's On Garde about a year or so ago, I was quite intrigued. Obviously, John Blanche is an absolute legend, and I love his work at Games Workshop and beyond Games Workshop as well. I just made a video all about just a single piece of his artwork, the Night Panther, because I just think it's so iconic, so amazing. So I was really excited to find out more about this game, and then the team behind John Blanche's On Garde got in touch with me to see if I wanted to speak with everybody involved, including John Blanche himself and rules designer Tuomas Pirinen, who I think is awesome as well. So I am sure it is no surprise that I absolutely bit their hand off and said, yes, I really want to speak to everybody I can about this exciting new game. There is a video coming up on my Jordan Sorcery Pod's YouTube channel where I have created an anthology, if you like, of all of those conversations where we touch on Garde. That is the artists, the creators, John Blanche, the sculptors, Tuomas Pirinen. It is all there, all of it about On Garde and the creation of this amazing looking new game. I will also be releasing extended versions of many of those conversations exclusively on my Patreon, and some of them might make their way onto YouTube as well in the future. Now, I haven't been paid to do those interviews nor to make this particular video, but I will admit that having had access like that, just being able to talk to all of these people who are involved in this game, who are incredibly creative, incredibly passionate about it, you know, I have become quite hyped about it. So it has gotten me into a very excited place. I don't think that's very surprising, but I just wanted to make it clear that, you know, this is not a sponsored video or anything like that. But obviously, my opinion, my excitement has been influenced by talking at length about this game with the people who really, really love it. So just wanted to put that out there and make that clear up front. Okay, so what exactly is John Blanche's On Garde? Described as the game that John Blanche has always wanted to make, inspired by his love of historical dueling, and produced at his favourite miniature scale of 54mm, the game takes place in Blanche's conception of a fantasy version of a city like Venice, one where dueling is not only legal, but a way of life. Walking the streets of this vibrant, colourful fantasy world are lawful vampires, dirty cheating scoundrels, ancient fencing masters, untrustworthy aristocrats, and supernatural creatures. Each player needs just one model, and duels are fought in a wide array of different interactable arenas with customizable characters and a deck of cards for mechanics. I'm told that it is going to be fast and dynamic and exciting, so, you know, if all of that is true and it plays as well as the art and the miniatures that we've seen so far look, then I think there is definitely cause for a bit of excitement about its release. I think it looks really good based on what we've seen. I mean, there is a certain sort of Warhammer-ness to its design. Obviously, this is coming from the mind of John Blanche. It's got all of the historical and the fantasy influences that he loves. But I've also heard talk of certain films having been an influence. And one of my favourite films ever is Ridley Scott's The Duelists, which I think is awesome, which I think has a certain Warhammer quality to it already. That is apparently one of the things that's kind of influenced loosely this game, as has Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, which is an absolutely stunning film. And, you know, to take certain aspects of that and kind of, I doubt it's going to be. I would imagine it wouldn't have the feel of that. That's a very slow and considered, very beautiful film. It looks amazing, but it's not the sort of dynamic kind of first battles for the most part. But the aspect of the dueling part of it, and the idea, the lush and vibrant clothes and costuming and all of that sort of stuff, all of that being an influence, that is really cool. I'm very eager to see more of that. You can see some of that in the miniatures already, but yeah, I want to see more of that world and how it sort of expands out from those roots. In fact, when I spoke to John Blanche, he talked a little bit about some of those influences, some of that real world history, and how all of that was part of his process for the creation of this world.
It develops as it goes along. It's what I still could draw. I wanted to explore a bit of the 17th and definitely the 18th century nobility, were sword pants and fancy clothes, lots of lace and stuff. And I just ended up doing it all like that, getting involved with lace punk. Oh, I got a bit bored with everything's medieval. I go, well, let's do something that gets a bit later in real history. And as I was doing it, it kind of warped towards the sea. And that kind of warped a bit piratey looking by accident. If I was really doing pirates, I'd done it slightly differently. But it's interesting to see what just comes out of spontaneity. I always find great solace in the spontaneous. Because it comes out of your head. It goes back to reality, even if you can't remember. So the spontaneous use of imagery that is real injects the concept with a touch of reality.
This is a game about two opponents. It's a literal duel between two models. So there are some innate challenges to creating a game like that, where you want to avoid just both players darting to the center of the battlefield and then just duking it out until one of them wins. That has the risk of becoming very repetitive and just, not very dynamic and not very fun. The rules designer for John Blanche's On Guard is Tuomas Pirinen, who worked with John Blanche on the absolute classic fan favourite 6th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and Mordheim, which is still an incredibly loved game, a skirmish game that is just full of character, an incredible world, lots and lots of fun. Obviously, as a skirmish game, you're using an entire warband. Here, you're just using a single fighter. So I was eager to talk to Tuomas about how has he created that dynamism, that character. How do you bring together all of the sort of feel of a duel, whilst also making it into a game that is not repetitive and just gives you many more options and makes things interesting every single time you play it?
The challenge really came more from the pure design side, that there's been many dueling games in the past, but they've always, in my mind, suffered from the problem that you have like two guys standing in front of each other and then you roll off who wins. All the stuff about the moving backwards and forwards and dodging and the dirty tricks, the kind of stuff that happened in the Princess Bride's duel, have been mainly missing, or they are very abstracted. Now, I'm not bad-mouthing. There are lots of duel games that I think are great, but the kind of feel that you want, this dynamism movement, is the taking a back step, lunging forward, is desperate parries. I haven't gotten that in any dueling game I played, so I really wanted to bring that to the gaming world.
Right, yeah. So how did you do that? How did you make the mechanics that represent that and give that feel?
Yeah, so I will speak a little bit boring game design, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. So basically, each duelist builds a deck of cards that represent all the possible moves they can make. And these could be lunges or the backflips or backstabs, depending on your position. They could be like trips. They could be taking a swig of rum if you happen to be a dueling pirate, and these will have gameplay effects. And every card can also be, if you don't want to use it, you can put it down, and that allows you to move one square. So there could be like you're in close combat with the opponent with 2 daggers. They are very deadly close by. So you use one card to step back, and then you are armed with a longsword. You use a lunging attack, which is more effective from distance. It's there is always this dance, and some moves require you like the run past the opponent and the strike them in the back. So you need to plan your moves ahead. You always roll a dice in the start of every turn, which represents the energy or opportunities you have, and then the cards have costs to pull off attacks. Of course, more powerful attacks you need a more dice or higher dice or certain numbers. But then some cards which represent your thinking and planning allow you to manipulate those dice. So it becomes this dance of the movement, attacks, parries, dodges, and the game mechanics strongly favor mobile fighters. So just standing in the front of the other guy is usually very dangerous. It's you want to fight in your optimal distance. You want to strengthen the fallback. You might have a dueling pistol. You don't want to do that in close combat because it's easier to parry it, and so on and so forth. And obviously, I am the most biased person in the world, but I'm pretty happy with the system.
On Facebook and Instagram, Pirinen has been sharing some snippets of the background for the characters who have already been revealed for the game. And there is some interesting and fun world building within those, as you would expect. Here is a particular excerpt from the character Ben Hook that I thought was really fun. Over his long and perilous career as a professional duelist, he has suffered more than 60 wounds, lost an arm, leg, an eye, and both of his ears in a series of bloody and bitter clashes. Indeed, there is not an inch of his body that is not crisscrossed with scars, patched up with rough skill, and disinfected with rum. Where others might have slinked into the taverns to lick their wounds and spend the rest of their days engaging in braggery of past triumphs, Ben Hook has pressed on and turned every injury into an advantage. His lost right arm, some say he actually pawned it off to pay his debts, has been replaced with a wickedly curved hook, and his peg leg ends in a vicious spike. His mouth, his teeth knocked out since long ago, now bristles with iron fangs. Indeed, there is scarcely a part of his body that has not been turned into a deadly weapon. As well as the beautiful John Blanche concept art that's already been shared, there are also a number of images of the absolutely stunning miniatures that have been produced for this game. Each model has been sculpted at 54mm, much like another classic game that bore much of Blanche's influence, Inquisitor. Many of these models have been painted by the folks at Grimdark Compendium, and the sculptors who brought these concepts to life are the brilliant Paul Hicks and Patrick Masson. Across the range of characters that have been seen so far, there are zombie pirates, roguish tricksters, and vampiric aristocrats who are actually the good guys. According to Pirinen, there are also Lovecraftian creatures that have emerged from the seas who will come to fight in the dueling grounds as well. Back in around 2007, Games Workshop advertised a range of independent John Blanche models. They were called Femme Militant, and they were literally created by John Blanche as a sort of a set of 40mm display pieces. They weren't for Warhammer, they weren't for 40k, they were completely separate and of Blanche's own realm, I suppose. That Femme Militant experiment didn't last very long, but there was a lot of character to those individual models. They're absolutely beautiful, and you can see them online. There is, I think, a sort of continuous vision through a lot of that like non-Games Workshop stuff that Blanche has looked at, where he clearly loves these individual, very characterful designs. Just, you know, the uniforms, the outfits, the fabrics, the materials, the details that characters are carrying tells you so much about the individuals, but also about the world in which they live. I think that seems to be something that Blanche is almost, it's very much a preoccupation of a lot of his work. So to see this kind of vision from way back in the early 2000s of these individual characterful models, and obviously with Inquisitor having been a 54mm miniatures game as well, and having a lot of John Blanche like elements to it, to then see this game, a 54mm dueling game set in a purely Blanchian world, fully inspired by his creations, his conception of a fantasy universe, it's a very nice continuity of vision. And I think that is part of that's one of the things that makes me quite excited about this game. I've been told that the first wave of miniatures for John Blanche's On Garde should be going on to Kickstarter relatively soon. I don't know the specifics in how many models are going to be in that range. I don't know which particular models are going to be available. I would assume it's mostly the ones that we've seen already on the Facebook page and on Instagram. I think the idea there is that you'll be able to get hold of a set of models right now. You can, these are like little statues, miniature statues. They're beautiful models. You can create them as display pieces. You can assemble and paint them right now or as soon as the Kickstarter goes live, and then have them ready for when the actual dueling game, which I will admit is the thing I'm most excited about, when that comes out later in the year. I have no idea about what dates that dueling game is actually going to go on Kickstarter as well, and when the rest of the miniature range will be revealed and launched. But I'm quite excited. I think miniaturists, hobbyists, painters are going to have a lot of fun with these models because they are so detailed, they look amazing, they're so characterful. I'm looking forward to seeing them in the flesh, as it were. I really can't wait to actually assemble some of these models. And then cannot wait to actually fight with them in a duel. I think that's going to be awesome. But I'm also just really excited to explore the world that they're building, that John Blanche and Tuomas Pirinen and the rest of the team behind this game have been creating, because it already looks super exciting. It looks like a world that, I would want to spend time exploring. Not literally, I don't think I would fare very well if I ended up there, but through books and through art and through miniatures and through gameplay. I'm really excited to explore this world more. I've already shown you this image, but it's so good that I thought I would show it again. Created by Thomas Elliott, who previously worked at Games Workshop and produced amazing work like the cover to Age of Sigmar's 3rd edition, this is a character for On Garde that is directly inspired by John Blanche himself. And apparently, the miniature is just as fantastic as the artwork, and I can completely believe it. I am so eager to see it in real life. There you go. That is everything that we know right now about John Blanche's On Garde, a 54mm dueling game that is from the mind of John Blanche, from this legendary artist's just pure conception. Amazing, amazing visuals already, and the miniatures, I think, look awesome. I can't wait to see what Tuomas Pirinen has done with these dueling rules, to see how it actually plays. I'm really hoping that I'll have an excuse to talk more about this game in the future, because I'm excited about it. I think it looks great. The interviews video will be available on the Jordan Sorcery Pods channel very soon, and go to patreon.com/JordanSorcery if you would like to see extended versions of those conversations. They're going to be released over the coming weeks. There's also a load of new free stuff available on my Patreon, including one of my earliest interviews. It's been a Patreon exclusive all of this time. It was with Tuomas Pirinen himself, and we talked about Warhammer and Mordheim history. So you can see that for free right now at patreon.com/JordanSorcery. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Jordan, and this is Jordan Sorcery. Speaking of John Blanche, I was recently very generously gifted a couple of the Empire Citizens miniatures that came out in late Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I think that this one might be based on John Blanche, but I'm going to guess it would be absolutely impossible for me to get it in focus and for you to see it.